from you and Soggy.
Oh. Can we do that this afternoon, Soggy?
Yeah, they keep emailing me like saying, "Hey, there's still form missing. Hey,
sorry, I meant to do that. We have to fill out those forms.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
And we also need to get airline reservations and bookings for the IP. Let's do that today.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that today. Sorry, Dequan, that was. It made it to the top of a list at one point and then disappeared.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know why they require like every author to do that, because it's not the case for like geophysics or GGI. It's I don't know.
Well, one person has to sign on behalf of everybody. So anyway, that's fine. We'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess a few things. Just maybe you could just give us some commentary, because I've never really talked to you about how 350 went for you last year. How many people did you have?
Like 70, 80, like 80, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was 80 to 90.
Yeah, 80 or 90. Yeah, a few students dropped off, but yeah, like 80 something.
We were expecting a much lower number this year, but we seem to have maxed out at 75 or possibly 80. So we're still going to have a large group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so was there anything from your perspective that was really felt like after having done that, we really needed to upgrade whatever, either the GPG or, I mean, we've got all the slides, but with respect to upgrading any of the material, or the other thing actually has to do with how you contended last year with the marking, because you had 90 students. And
oh yeah, that's we did something like, for example, if it's just quiz or something, we just use the Sketron, just like electronic marking. So it's just a bubble sheet. That's easy. And also we did the same thing. Did the bubble sheet for midterm. So the midterm is like a bubble sheet only.
Wait. So how do you do that? What do you say? Scantron?
Yeah, it's a machine called Scantron. It's basically just bubble sheet.
I'm not familiar with.
It wasn't actually the Scantron.
Sort of the green and white bubble sheets, and then you can feed them into an automatic marker.
That's not what we used. We used a bubble sheet that they put through the remark grading system.
It's a computer software, like a department has software like optical mark recognition system. So they have the software on a few computers in the department, so we can just use it. It's it's just like very, very fast.
Mike, do you have an example? You sound like you're familiar with this. Do you have an example?
I mean, yeah.
Somewhere? Okay.
I've used that grading system to do it 10, 20 times.
Oh, perfect.
For different classes, final exams, midterms, quizzes. I mean, I did it for one of the quizzes for 350 last year.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's for midterm and the quiz. And for the, I think for the final, we had the bubble sheet for like 50% bubble sheet, and another 50% is just some short answer questions.
Right.
And we actually, at least for my part, I intentionally make things easier by just making the questions are like a drawing questions. So like draw something, it's kind of easier to mark, much easier than just reading the student writing.
Yeah.
And then you converted the TBL exercises to D1 to those Google forms that the students could.
Oh, right, yeah, I forgot. Okay, yeah, we should. Yes, yeah, we also changed how the students do the TBL. So we changed it to Google form. So they basically just submit their answers online, and it's just got marked automatically right away.
Dequan, can you share that in Google? Like it seems like some of the links are not available So if you can share that.
You mean the Google Forms?
Yeah, original forms that you've generated.
Yeah, sure, I can share. It's very simple. So yeah, the Google Form is very simple. So and also you got to know when the student got to turn them in, like so who is late or who is that kind of thing, and you can set up the time like after which your submission will be like too late or like do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And they have the chance to submit twice if they think they can do it better.
Oh, so they were submitting twice?
Yeah. They're allowed to change their answer late after the first submission. But you can change the setting whatever you like. It's in the Google form. It's very flexible.
But do you have like an example of, or essentially an archive of everything that you did last year so that we could use it as a template?
I think so, at least for my components, yes. Basically, I have all the questions written in like a Microsoft Word file. And I just, every time I need a Google form, I just ask TA to translate my questions to the Google form. So basically, the questions are actually still archived in the folder.
But then, Dequan, can you also share the Google Forms with us?
Yeah, sure. If you want, I can do it now.
And the other question I have, how did you keep track of students with that? Did they have an ID or like, because technically we shouldn't use their names if it's Google?
So we did something like we assign each student 350 ID. And so the 350 ID is basically their last 4 digits of their student ID.
Okay.
So basically we don't have the complete information to identify each student.
Okay.
But we still have enough information to distinguish them.
Fair enough.
And it's very easy to do the matching, or like if you have like a spreadsheet with their last 4 digits, we can easily do the matching if we want to do automatic updating the final mark or something.
Okay. But again, is there a complete archive of all this? Because I mean, my experience with people who understand how to do something and say, "Oh, well, that's really easy. You know, you just do this, you do that, right?" And then somebody else comes along, like, "I have no idea. Like, where is everything, right?" So, is it all archived?
You mean the Google Forms or?
Well, just everything that you did with respect to, to generating questions, marking.
Yeah. I think everything is archived in the folder. I don't have the folder right now because my Dropbox is full, so I kind of like decoupled. But I think all the questions or something everything's in the folder if you can see it.
Well, I've got your class, and then there's a grade. There's students.
So now I have my the TBL form. I don't know how I can share this with you guys.
Can you just send it by Slack?
Well, he needs to change the permissions on it.
Oh, I see.
Hey, Jaja.
Hi, Lindsay.
How's it going?
Hi.
Hey, Jaja.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hi. How's it going?
Doing good. Getting ready for Friday.
Haven't seen you for a while.
Oh yeah.
So how's life in beautiful downtown Houston?
Oh, I don't use that word.
Wait, beautiful downtown?
Yeah, just getting ready for the new semester, which will begin next week. So I'm trying to put together all the slides for my EM class.
How many students are you going to have taking it?
25, which is a really good number. Way better than I expected. So 25 students in my EM class.
You mean graduate student?
No, I've got 23 undergrads and 2 graduates.
Oh.
That's great.
Just a second.
So I'm not sure if you, Jaja, if you know everybody around the table, but we'll just introduce you to them, or they can introduce themselves. So, Tibo?
Start over there. Sure. Sorry.
Hi, Jaja. So I'm Tibo EOSC. So I'm doing my PhD with the right now about geological constraint for inversion.
Which you might know something about.
A little bit. Hi.
Hi, Jaja.
Hi, Soggy.
Mike?
Hi, Mike.
Mike is hidden.
Oh, hey, Mike.
How's it going?
Good, good.
Well, that was fast.
How are you?
And that's who's that again? That's Dom. That's not Dom. Is that Dom?
That's Dom.
Oh, okay. You look different. Okay, that's Dom.
And I'm Devin.
Oh, hi, Devin.
Good to meet you.
Anyway, wanted to try to get together with our group here that are involved in development of the open source resources and also teaching. We have a class coming up. It's the geophysics for non-geophysicists. So a lot of geological engineers, geologists, as well as a couple of people from geophysics. This is a class that is taken by third or fourth year undergraduates, and its purpose, as with most of these, is just to introduce generally what geophysics is, what different techniques is, how they could be applied to various kinds of problems. It's actually a pretty important group to hit because with 75 or 80 people, geologists and engineers, these are the guys that are actually going to go out and be faced with problems and have to make a decision about whether or not we should use geophysics. And so it's important that they have some idea about what the different techniques are, how they could be used, what to get out, what not to get out, and just to be grounded. So that's the class, and we're developed the GPG as basically a resource, kind of like a textbook. It's course material. Then there's apps, and then there's also lecture slides. And so we're at the position right now, just kind of trying to put all of those things together in such a way that that's really useful. And I thought it'd be really good to have both of you guys on board for a variety of reasons. One is that you're both teaching something over this next year. Jaja, you got an electromagnetic course that's coming up, and Dequan, your course is kind of sort of 350-ish, I think, is it? You can elaborate.
Yeah, it's basically a non-seismic course. So everything excluding seismic.
And what level are your students at? It's an undergraduate course, right?
Very similar to 350. It's like upper level undergrad.
So what we're looking at here, and especially after the course in Houston, Jaja, is trying to now take a bit more of a holistic view of the resources that we've got and try to put ourselves in the position of saying, okay, so suppose you're a professor, as you guys are, going to teach a course in electromagnetics, or you're going to teach a course in to non-geophysicists, just general geophysics. Then what are the resources that we currently have that could be of use to you? How do we make sure that they're deployed in such a way that that they're accessible and that they have the information that is required that you'd really like to see? And then how do we get back from you contributions to sort of upgrade the material and to develop resources that are really useful for everybody in a longer term? So that's kind of where we are right now. And to some extent, DQuant, I think last year was a bit of an experiment in this from the point of view of 350, because I've taught 350 for a number of years, and I had my own set of slides. And it's interesting, as you present something, there's certain images that resonate, there's certain stories that you want to have told, there's certain ways that you want to present things. And so I had a set of slides, which definitely worked for me. And then we had the course that was taught, was a combination of DQuant, Devin, and Sarah DeVries. And they each took a portion of that course and they presented it. And so if they're going to present it, as any good person was, they're going to put material together that's really meaningful to them. And so at the end of the last year, we noticed that there was now a whole other set of slides that were generated for the course that were really individualized to the particular instructor. And those slides, a lot of them came from a combination of my previous slides, as well as stuff from the GPG. And actually, it just seemed perfect. That was actually a very, I think, realistic example of how the resources could be used. And then in addition to that, because DQuant, Sarah, and Devin have done their own slides, I actually have access to them this year. And so what I've been doing is going back, I'm looking at my old slides. I'm looking at the stuff that was done last year, and now putting together yet another new set of slides. And I think that's kind of like a good vision for how this really might work in practice. And so I thought it might be really an appropriate opportunity to kind of get together with both of you as well as the group here, and maybe brainstorm a little bit on how we actually want to make this work more efficiently in practice, and also how to make sure that everybody else, in particular you two, can contribute as far as, okay, you've got material, how do we actually contribute material to the open source resources, and kind of go forth as a real group. So I think there's a couple of parts. Maybe the first part of this will just talk about what the steps are, and in order to make changes to what is already exists, or suggest changes, and then how to sort of upgrade or add stuff, and then maybe also talk about how we might want to kind of go forth in the future. So I don't have really hard ideas about what we want to do. I think everybody has an opportunity to kind of say what would be workable from their perspective. And then if we kind of hear all those points of view, then we can try to figure out maybe what the most efficient way is to go forward. So anyway, that's a bit of background. I'm not sure, Judge or DQuant, do you have any kind of thoughts that you'd like to put forth? And then maybe we'll turn it over to Lindsay, and she can talk a bit about just the actual steps that are involved in getting things on, and just how we can start to efficiently improve the resources that we've got.
I think in terms of the actual content, the modules will have pretty much everything. But for me, because I'm supposed to teach some other things, for example, a couple of modules are missing. So if I'm going to do anything to beef up the existing stuff, I may just go ahead to add stuff for gravity and for well logging. Those are two components I will be teaching, and is currently missing.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah, now we have magnetic. So we have magnetic, we have a DC, we have a EM induction, we have a GPRs. Yeah, I don't have to teach seismic, so that's fine. Yeah, so I'm right now I'm just missing the gravity and the well logging, and those are 2 modules, and yeah, we can work on. And for the existing stuff, I think, yeah, we got pretty much the essential stuff. Maybe just need to polish them. So, for example, some notebooks are made very specific to 350. Like, for example, the rebar buried on the beach, that kind of stuff. I may just to make it more general. So instead of saying like a rebar or something in the notebook, I may just say the object, because we don't have a beach here. we don't necessarily bury rebar. We may do something else, but yeah, we just like some changes to the text and maybe repackage the existing apps. That'll be fine. I think those components are okay. And another thing is, yeah, just my experience from last year, and we probably have to do do something about the software itself, because I feel like the student had a lot of troubles and working with like the Python notebooks, not the actual technical content, but just like getting things installed on their computer, like get things running. And actually, I feel like students spend more time installing software than actually using it. And especially for the first few weeks, when the student just started using the apps, basically I got like 30 emails every night just asking me why this didn't work. Like, it's a bit of a nightmare. So those are something I think we can, yeah, just think about how we can do this better this year, so we can save time. And because the reality is most students are absolutely like a non-programmer. They just have no experience of programming. And if you ask them to do this setting to, like, for example, pip install or do those things seems like too complicated for them, and they seems really busy. They just didn't have that much time doing all those works. Yeah, so for me, that's maybe we can. I don't know what's the latest technology, but maybe we can do something to help them, so they don't have to, yeah, just got caught by those kind of things.
One thing I think that we should look into, I know there's a number of people who use Simpeg who are using this, is there's an Anaconda launcher for the Jupyter Notebook. Has anybody used that? Like, we're all so comfortable in the command line, we don't think to use these things. But that might be something worth looking into, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a very easy way to also just like specify a given environment file that needs to strap onto the Jupyter notebooks. And then that would be very simple, because it would be then a double click.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah. And another thing is I realized the app, the 350 apps are programmed in inconsistent ways. Like some modules have dependence on like EM examples, and some are like standalone. Some, yeah, I'm not sure what's is it very necessary to have those kind of dependency, or?
So the goal for EM examples, we're hoping that code base will get cleaned up. And so that's a good place to store code with respect to EM. But yeah, that's absolutely something to give thought to. A lot of the code was, one-off code written for the notebooks. So it is a little scattered. So yeah, that's sort of part of it right now. I think ideally the biggest thing we want to avoid is having 2 copies of anything. And so right now we have some notebooks that live both in EM apps and in the GPG labs, which is totally fine. But then we want the code that those are calling to only exist in one place. And so we've decided that it should only exist in EM examples. And then there's some code that is specific to the GPG that exists in GPG labs only. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, so it's just like remember, when students are supposed to run the app, they have to install the EM examples first, or like do something about it, and they just had some hard time doing it. Like I remember I experimented asking students to do some app-based exercise in the class, so I can have some real-time feedback from them. And basically, I have them TBL basically just like ask each team to send a leader to the podium and just talk about their result by using the apps, basically. And it turns out I was the only person in the classroom who's able to run the app, and all those students were not able to run the app. Yeah, so yeah, hopefully we can get those things cleaned up, so it's just easier.
At the end, which setup did you use? Deep1? Like you got a couple of options, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you ended up using in the course?
Well, for me, I have a Python installed on my laptop. That's not popular for me. But those students are initially they were using UBC cloud, yeah, something, and then that one turns out to be very unstable, unreliable. Especially if many people are logging at the same time, it just got disconnected. So after a few iterations, we realized maybe we just ask students to use Azure. I don't know if it's the best technology so far, but at least that was the best solution last year. I encourage students to install Python on their computers, but it seems like they're just too lazy to do that.
I think that's too much.
Yeah, I think for me, just two things, basically just adding gravity and well logging. And then the next one, just clean up the existing apps. That'll be in pretty good shape.
We have all of the different techniques at this point sort of categorized. You know, there's kind of a flow for each one with respect to, you know, physical properties, and then I guess it's basic principles and data survey and high headings like that. I guess first thing, from when you were teaching last year, were you pretty comfortable with that refactoring? And then secondly, well, that's the first question. Did that seem to work for you?
What do you mean? You mean like
what we had tried to do maybe a year or two ago was to present each technique in a particular format so that it would have the same look and feel if you went to magnetics or DC resistivity or seismic. You know, you've got the same kind of table of contents for each of these. And I think there was like 7 different headings. And I guess my question of you, did that seem to work for you? Because that was our best shot, and it sort of seems to work for us, but you might have some other ideas. And the follow-up on that is, if it does work, then if you could take the gravity and the well logging, you know, and just put them into that same kind of format so that everything would have kind of consistent look and feel as we go through.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, yeah, it's true. Yeah, had a very pretty positive feeling about that. Yeah, another thing is maybe for the apps, maybe we just make, yeah, like you said, make them more consistent across different methods. For example, like for magnetic or like gravity or DC. So basically, we just create like a very general purpose for the modeling app, so we can use in whatever we will want. Like maybe sometimes maybe just very simple like 2D for the modeling, and
can you run that by again, Dequan? I'm not quite sure what you're trying to get at here.
Oh, I mean just some very general purpose apps.
Yeah, it's like
do you mean
it's a mag app, like a mag dipole?
Yeah, like a mag forward, like a gravity forward, DC forward.
I think geared towards like a simulation and.
Yeah, the app itself only does like a very simple, just for the modeling, and without saying anything about like this is within which part of the teaching, or like just general purpose. So when I'm teaching, I can use this component wherever I want.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but a lot of them are kind of like that, are they not?
I'd say the EM apps are certainly quite general purpose right now. I would have to have a look again at the GPG ones.
But I think GPG ones is more, I think how we developed is mostly for the lab in the beginning. So it's probably pretty specific.
Yeah, so it's something very specific.
Yeah, good point.
This is just a thought, and we can reject this or not. Wondering if it's worth having like if are you planning to take the apps and adapt them, Dequan, or do you want to use them as is and write course content around them? I guess is my question.
Oh, yes, good question. Depending how much time I have, in the worst case scenario, maybe I just use whatever existing now. I think I maybe just change a couple of words in the app so it can be like used in my class. That's the easiest thing, the easiest way to do that. But if I have time, I would really like to kind of like streamline the code a bit, because I remember the current setup is like the actual code is in the backend. So the notebook basically only like a one-line function or something, just one line calling the backend function. And if I want to do something or change something, I always get lost. I remember last year I had to ask Dom multiple times to change the code for me because I just wasn't able to.
Yeah, the code is.
Why they were trying to change the code?
Dequan was trying to change the code.
Oh,
yeah, I was trying to change code because there are some, for example, some bugs. For example, the elevation can only be like a meter, and then it doesn't accept something smaller than a meter. I remember something like that.
Okay, I think so we're getting quite detailed here, so let's maybe pull back a step. But I think that one way to communicate things like that is through issues on GitHub, and we can go through that afterwards too. Because too, if you want to go in and change stuff and Dom knows immediately in 5 seconds where to change that parameter, like he can jump in and help. And so, and two, we can like, because the thing with multiple people relying on the same resources for different things, so we need to make sure that the assumptions that you are imposing don't break also then what we're doing as well, and vice versa. So issues are a good way to communicate what you're about to change before actually making the change and distributing that.
And another thing is, is it just like brainstorming? It's kind of like separate those different modules into like different packages.
That starts getting harder for distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like eventually, if these resources do seriously grow in size, and if we have multiple variations and want to actually have method by method distribution, we can think about that. But for 2 or 3 courses, I think that would be it would be much harder to get the notebooks to the students if we split it up.
Okay.
Would be my take. Jaja?
Yeah, Jaja, any comments?
No, because so I haven't used any of the apps that you guys developed in my class, so I don't have as much experience as Dequan's. So but I'm preparing for my EM class. So from what I see now, and also from the short courses that you taught at UH, I was sitting in the class. So from what I see, all the material, most of the material, I mean, all 99% of the materials that I need for my EM class are already there. I mean, in terms of contents, in terms of the apps. Yeah. Also, I don't have any problem using these apps, using Azure, Microsoft Azure. That is what I used last semester for my machine learning class. So that turned out to be working really well. Students didn't have any problem with Python or anything. They just need to clone my library and run all the cells one by one. So I don't expect to see big problems of using these apps in my EM class too, because I'm going to use Azure again. And also all the slides from DISC and also from the petroleum short courses are very good. So I'm just, right now what I'm doing now is to building on top of what you have already done. I mean, the slides. So,
Georgia, have we sent you the PowerPoints? Would that be helpful? I don't know.
Sorry, what's that? Say it again.
Have we sent you the PowerPoints, or are you working off of the PDFs?
Oh, the PDFs. I only have the PDFs.
Do you want the PowerPoints?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, we can send you those.
Yeah, so I don't have much to contribute at this point because I haven't used any of the apps yet. But from what I see now, it's good to me. I pretty much have everything that I need for my class.
So then is the bigger thing from your perspective perhaps EM GeoSci, like the website, and just sort of how to contribute typos or like thoughts on added and stuff like that?
Yes.
I think like one of the big important things that we've been thinking about is the structure of EM GeoSci right now. There's a lot of, like, I'm sure as you've been poking around on there, there's a lot of under construction pages.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of places, the table of contents is really deep. So it's hard to find certain pages. So we are thinking a lot about the structure and how to potentially restructure some of that to make it easier to navigate.
Yeah, I probably will be able to provide more feedbacks on that because in my syllabus, I tell the students that we are going to use em.geosci.xyz as the suggested reading material. So I would expect many students to spend a lot of time on that website. So hopefully they can provide some useful feedback for you. Also, I'm going to I'm heavily relying on the em.geosci.xyz now for preparing my slides. So I think I will be able to provide more feedbacks to you as I progress into the semester.
That would be great.
Yeah, I think if there's no other questions or topics that are urgent, I think it might be worth actually just like talking through how to actually contribute to EM GeoSci and like how we make changes. This will be the same for the GPG and how to version things. Is that good, or are there other topics people want to go over right now? We can jump into contributing. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. So I won't see you, so just interrupt if you have questions or comments or thoughts. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So I want to start, actually, let's start on EM GeoSci. So every page at the top, you'll see, and this is the same on the GPG, there's an Edit on GitHub button. And so what that does is that actually takes you to this page, and you can go in and fix typos and things like that. So that's a great workflow if you're quite confident that the thing, like it's a spelling mistake or it's like a very blatantly obvious mathematical error or something like that. Go ahead and just fix it and create a new branch and propose the file change. And so what that'll do is we'll get an email that says there's a proposed change to the index file by Jaja or by Tiquan. Have a look, and if it all looks good, then we can go ahead and merge it. Within that process, there's a couple things that happen. So you can see here the check marks versus the X's. So we actually go in and there's a few tests that are run on all changes. So we first actually check, there's two things that it really checks. It checks, first of all, that the site builds so that you haven't introduced any like bugs in the layout or anything like that. And then the second thing that it checks is that all of the links actually resolve to a real website. So if there's a link to Wikipedia or a paper or something like that, it checks that it actually continues to exist. So if this comes back as a red X, that means that there's something that needs to be fixed. But I want to come here to the issues, because this is actually, I think, the most important communication channel that we can be using, because this is where we first actually talk about proposed changes or talk about bugs. So I know, Jaja, you were emailing us a couple things about this figure and then an equation, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the absolute ideal workflow, and this is a great issue. So you've got the page, you've got the figure, there's a description of what's going on. And so this is a good way to raise something that you're either not sure about or that like there's a few steps and we need to have a conversation first. So this gives us a way to track, you know, if the issue's been dealt with or not. So, because if you just email us, it sort of gets lost in the email bucket. But this actually persists, and we can see that it's open or closed. And so one of the things that is important, especially once the site is live and in use during classes, is actually having version numbers. So let's say that we see this issue that Jaja has raised. It looks like, what was the issue here, Jaja?
Oh, the red curve in the right panel, the phase values. The phase value should be really from 90 to 180 degrees, right? So, but if you look at the values on the y-axis, it's not within that range.
Oh yeah, it's from 0 to 90.
And also, as the introduction is, I would expect the phase value tonically increase from 90 to 180. But the red now it shows the monotonic decrease in behavior. So
yeah, it's the usual. Well, part of it's the usual minus sign, and then you've got a minus I. So there's a 90 degrees. Right, and then all of the inductive processes take you from the minus 90 to the minus 180. Yeah, we've grappled with a bit of this, whether we should plot things as positive or negatives.
Yeah, Judge, a good point. We'll take a look. But you can take a look. There's a code. If you go back. And okay, it's a bit of layers, but go back and there's a source code.
Where is this?
Go down, yeah, there. Click the source code.
Oh.
And then you can look at that. There's a QFun.
Oh.
It's not a good word, but so you can take a look. I think you probably need an example, but you could take a look at how that function looks like. There could be a bug. I'm not.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure why is that happening.
You should spell phase right too. You could change that one, right?
Oh. You're welcome to change.
Okay. That's great.
But yeah. Thanks, Jaja.
Yeah, no problem.
Probably my fault.
So I'll post that as a. Okay, yeah, so submitting an issue, what happens then is that if this does need to actually be updated, somebody will go in and start a pull request and ideally reference this issue so we know where the fix is.
Hello? Oh.
Can you still hear me?
Are you there, Dequan?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I just lost you guys.
Still. Yeah, okay, so create an issue, then we're gonna go in and fix that issue, start a pull request. Then all pull requests on either GeoSci, or sorry, EM GeoSci or GPG have to be reviewed before they go live. So you won't be allowed to merge your own pull request. So what that means is if we go here, we can actually look at Soggy's change and go in, ask a question. So why'd you do this? Can you provide some clarification? Or if it all looks good, then we can approve it. and then it can be merged. One thing that I mentioned that's important before merging is actually the versioning. And so I can walk anybody who's interested through the steps to actually bump the version. Right now, if you haven't worked with this, feel free to just ping Soggy, myself, or Dom's probably done this before. But the biggest thing is before you merge the pull request, we use a package called Coda to help with the versioning. And I can send you the link for that. But what we do is we keep track of the version number in this bump version file. And so right now, GeoSci is on 0.0.3. And then when there's two places where the version number is stated, it's stated in the configuration file for the site, and then it's stated in the footer. And so if we actually go to GeoSci, I'll show you where those show up. So this is the one that shows up from the configuration file. And then this is the one that shows up in that footer. And this actually links to the release notes, so you can see what changed in this version and why it's been updated. So this just helps us keep track of what is changing with the site and makes it pretty clear to everybody if, you know, this page existed last week, why doesn't it anymore? You should be able to always be able to check the release notes, and that should be clear. So the lowest number, that's called a patch. So those would be any sort of like typo fix, anything that's small. If you added a paragraph or something like that, those are all patches. Minor is the second one. That's if you're adding a whole bunch of content, if you've added a new page, if we've deleted a page, if we've reorganized something, anything where you're going to break old links. So if you deleted a page or reorganized things, if you changed the order in the table of contents, or like how deep something is, that should be minor. And then major is like a major refactoring. So if we add like a whole brand new section or rearrange a bunch of things.
So Lindsay, if I add gravity, so it should be a major?
Gravity, I think that would be a minor.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can always chat about that too. That's always something that like should be stated before you merge a pull request, is just I'm going to update this to version whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the package that we use is called Coda, and it just does like it's a slight wrapper on bump version that gives you a lot more useful information. So I can send, you guys are both on Slack, right?
Yep.
Okay, I can send you that link afterwards. But for now, like I would say, just when a pull request is ready to be merged, just ping one of us, and we're happy to help like change the version until everybody's comfortable doing this. Cool. And so, okay, so Dequan's going to add a brand new section on gravity. And so...
Oh, wow. So it's the plan, but I don't have much experience in gravity. So let's say it's a proposal.
Okay. Dequan is proposing to add a section on gravity. So that the workflow here that I would suggest is actually first start an issue and just give a brief outline of like the main pages you're thinking about. So here, if we look at starting an issue and we think about the current structure of the GPG. So here, if you look, for example, at DC resistivity, it starts with the physical property, then we go through basic principles, survey, data, interpretation, instrumentation, case histories, and then the apps. So ideally, you follow the same template, and then maybe give like a bit of a description of what you plan to include in each. Mm-hmm. And by first outlining this in an issue, we can, like, anybody here can jump in and say, oh yeah, we've got a great app that's helpful for this, or we've got some images we can give you, anything like that, before you sort of just go from scratch and do everything. So it's important to have that like iteration step where everybody has a look at what you're about to do, especially for these fairly major additions or changes. So Yeah, so are there questions with that? Or are there things that you guys are unsure of, or does that make sense?
Yeah, so what you just talked about is EMG, you're using the GPG, right? You're showing EMTSI or GPG?
I was showing both.
Okay.
The development process for both is identical.
Okay, are the EMGSI and the GPG are sharing something, or?
There's some code that they share for like building figures and stuff like that, but they're actually independent repositories, so they build separately.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're versioned separately and all of that.
Okay.
Some section of the GPG might refer to the EM GeoSci website through hyperlink at some point, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and one other thing to point out, because I will, this might be useful for your course. Both the GPG and EM GeoSci have this discuss add-on. So if we look here too, and this is something where anybody can post a question on any page of the site. So I would encourage you to go and add yourself. If you then send me your whatever email you used, I think, or your username for that, I'll add you, and you can actually then have like a global picture of all of the questions on the site, so that if your students are asking questions here, you can answer those, or your TAs can, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to add Jaja to this somehow? Sorry, I missed.
Yeah.
Missed how that procedure works.
Yeah. So you guys need to set up an account. So you can see how like my Google picture is there and it says my name. So like if you add an account, then I can add you basically as an admin on the discuss thread, so that you get a global picture of all of those.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm already on it.
Okay. If you get a chance to send me your email, I'll make sure that you have like higher permissions than just a user.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if there's. Is there anything else that would be helpful to go over at this stage, or is that sort of enough for right now?
Yeah, for me, the most urgent thing is the gravity and well logging. So I'm just asking, is there anybody, maybe Jaja, you can also contribute to some of the gravity stuff, or like maybe other people are willing to do?
Well, Yago must have a ton of stuff, right? You won't have any time for personally, but maybe
Allison.
Joe or who?
Allison Malcolm.
Oh, wait, Allison was doing. Allison Malcolm, do you know her? She was doing a section on gravity. So she's at Memorial University, and so she used the GPG, and she just sent us her slides and some of her labs and how she managed to use the resources in her course.
Okay. Yeah.
So that would actually be good.
Yeah, I just don't know where to start.
I'll send you an email and copy it to Allison. Then you guys can start conversing.
Good.
Okay.
And in terms of action plan, so how do you guys want to go ahead with like cleaning up the apps? Or I think that's the most important thing we need to do, like just clean up apps.
Yeah, we're not sure what's the best way, but this year is the last year, so we are planning to clean up some of the code base, and then we're thinking about generating like a general app, like let's say for magnetic dipole. So we have a plan, but I'm not 100% sure, Deepan, what's how we like collaboratively doing it. We have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the plan written down? Because that would be a good step to get DQuant involved as well.
Well, yeah, we have a plan for the Mac.
Okay.
So.
Because remember last year, I needed to like use some 3D visualization to show the field lines from a magnetic dipole.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. That one is not non-existing in the app, so I just programmed it up myself, and it's in my personal repository, and it's not part of a GPG apps, but I think it's something would be very useful.
Right, so you could push that. You can make a pull request. You make a branch and then make a pull request, and like some of us can review it and merge that into main branch.
Okay.
One thing, Jaja, as you're proceeding, I'm not sure what your course is going to entail as far as questions and labs and things like this, but here again is an area where it really behooves all of us to interact, so that we have a repository of not only apps but maybe questions that would be related to the apps that could be asked of students, and then also again, depending upon the level, technical questions on electromagnetics, for instance, just to have those, gradually put together and composited, so that there was, a resource out there that everybody could address. I think that would be extremely useful.
So are you talking about compiling a list of the questions from students about EM, or?
I'm just thinking from the point of view of an instructor at this point.
Oh, okay.
What are the questions that we're going to put on, on labs, on various.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
What, homework assignments or things like that. But
right.
start to composite these things, and as you're building stuff up for your course, then the idea of like, okay, eventually that's going to be archived someplace and shared. And if we get enough people doing that, eventually we get a lot of questions that are associated not only with the technical material, but also with the apps.
Yeah.
Especially for the electromagnetic apps, there's so many things that can be explored.
Yes,
exactly. Just actually write them down and have a student, like, this is the question that I'm asking. If we're able to have that, that would just enrich the usefulness of the apps.
Oh yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm going to use the Azure as the computing environment for students to do their homework. So all my labs will be my Azure account, which is in public domain, so anyone can access it. That's absolutely a good idea to put together all the questions that can be asked in order to help students better understand, for example, time-domain EM or frequency-domain EM. That's great, and I'm going to do that.
Perfect.
Okay, at this point, I think the materials apps are good to me, so I don't have any proposal or problems.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I think as you get more and more into the course and you actually are using things more and more, there's always things that come up that like, wish it could do this, or we need something else here, or here's a way that the functionality exists, but I've actually got some questions that I can use to probe students and help them understand.
So Jaja, you only
so this is on the graduate electromagnetics class, focusing on the important concepts, and we're going to use the apps to help a student develop an intuitive understanding of the physics. So we are going to heavily rely on the apps.
And you don't even need to teach DC or like a pure EM or?
Purely EM, just EM. Oh,
Okay.
DC and EM, DC and EM.
DC and okay, electrical and electromagnetics.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been great. I'm glad you guys were able to join. And yeah, we'll look real forward to kind of continuing this interaction and getting all these resources further developed and used. That's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those resources are great. Apparently, you guys have put a lot of time into it. So yeah, I just want to make sure that I make good use of these materials to help students get a good geophysical education, especially at UH on the non-seismic part, because UH in the geophysics department, we have our curriculum is heavily biased towards seismic. So the resources I hope can help students have a better education on non-seismic like GravMag and EM. But I think the resources will be really helpful.
Well, and then the experience that you get, as well as the materials that you develop, I think will be just really of interest to us, because it's actually a course that's being given with this material. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how it all develops. You got 25 students, that's a significant group, and yeah, what they can learn, that'd be great.
Yep. Yes, all my lecture slides and apps will be posted on my Azure account, so you guys can welcome to check anytime.
Sounds good. That's great, Jaja.
Okay, thank you for the resources.
Okay, yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Oh, Dickman?
Deepan,
Hi.
so just I just got a question about the lab last year. How was it okay? We got a lot of materials in the lab.
Uh-huh.
What was your experience? And then do you have any suggestion to minimize, like in either way, like the students' work or our work?
Oh, you mean the lab part? Okay, yeah, I think generally speaking, everything went well. And the only thing is last year we had a pretty big class. So yeah, so basically just maybe just to spend more time organizing, get things organized.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's other than that, I think that should be okay. And the amount of work is okay. Feel like Devin, do you think there is too much work, too less work, or?
Well, I think we did actually a really good job of trimming the fat on the labs. We actually made them doable in the allotted time, but where we lost time was one, the students don't read the lab before they come in. They need to be strongly encouraged to actually read through the lab, to be prepared to start when the lab starts. And then the second thing was that if any of them had any issues starting because of the computer stuff, the Python stuff, then that was the chunk where they lost time. So the exercise, as far as I'm concerned, pretty good, but they lost time having computer issues and then not coming prepared.
Yeah, I remember we did change the amount of work for the lab, but just reduce some questions and make it more concise, like maybe only keeping the essential questions, some other like yeah, just kind of like optimize the amount of work they're gonna work.
You had 3 lab units last year, did you?
2 Mac and 2 EM.
How many
Lab sections.
lab sections did you have? Did you
3.
have? You had 3. This year we're back to 2 because they were anticipating there was only going to be 40 people. If we try to put 40 people in each of those lab sections, A, do you think that can be done? And B, if people bring their own laptops, does that work, or what are we up against from a logistic viewpoint?
It's gonna be a little busy, but I think still doable depending how many TAs you have. Are you gonna use all your TAs at the same time, or are you gonna do the rotation, or like depend? even how you
Well, I
want to
think
use
we'll
your
probably
tool.
need 2 people. The department's allotting only 2 TAs. I might try to pick up one other one and pay from my grants, but that's basically it. I'm not going to conscript the rest of the people in the group this year. They've done their dues, although they might end up, reviewing material on the web or something like that. But we're going to try to actually run it just as somebody else would run it next year, because that's exactly what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Do you know who is going to teach next year?
Nope.
No, they haven't got a person to do that. Okay.
So anyway, that comes back to your experience last year. If you tried to somehow put 35 people or 40 people in one of those lab section rooms, do you think that's workable, or do we have to try to do something different?
I think it should be workable. You may just be a little busy. I think that, but still workable. And also, if you're going to keep the same amount of questions from last year, I think it should be okay, because last year it certainly had a fewer questions in their lab.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it should be doable, and especially if we streamline the workflow, like setting up the Python environment, or like tell them to use a Microsoft Azure from get-go, or like this should be much easier this year. Like forget about the UBC cloud. It's gonna save a lot of time.
Well, it seems like they have been improved quite a bit, so we might try, but we're going to have kind of.
Yeah, you can give a try this year again, see how it works. But my feeling from last year is just like so much trouble. Like I got the one problem, got to fix, and then there's another problem. We'll keep asking whoever's in charge, and you go, oh hey, you have to do this setting, you have to do another command in order to do that. It's just so, so time consuming.
I see. Yeah, so we'll have a couple backup plans, so that could go smoothly. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyway, so to your question, I think it should be okay. Yeah, should be okay.
Okay. That sounds great, Dequan. Well, listen, you enjoy the Danish open-faced sandwiches.
Yeah, thank you. I already had a lot.
Okay. Hey, thanks for joining, Jaja. Good talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Talk to you later.